Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Or if this is your first time, hi, I'm Brett and I have ADHD. Today we're talking about 5 ADHD things that literally nobody talks about. These are the deep ones, the ones that show up in how we feel, how we relate to people, and how we just move through the world. The ones that made us feel broken before we knew that there was a name for them. And before we begin, quick disclaimer. I'm not a doctor. Everything that I'm sharing is from my own research and from my lived personal experience. So, if anything resonates with you, please talk to a professional because you deserve actual support, not just a YouTube video. All right, so let's dive in before my brain says otherwise. So, number one, rejection sensitive dysphoria, or RSD, which sounds like a rare skin condition, but it's actually so much worse. RSD is an intense, almost instantaneous emotional response to receive rejection or criticism. Not "ow, that stings." We're talking a full body, can't breathe, I'm dying mentally level of pain over something like a text message or something that someone said. It can be anything that just sets you off emotionally. A simple, "hey, do you mind fixing that?" lands as "you are worthless" or that everyone secretly hates you.
Hey, the report needs some revisions.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. They must think I'm a failure.
Your brain skips the middle part entirely, so it goes zero to catastrophe. No warning, no off ramp. So, this is a very concerning thing. And here's the part that breaks people's brains: it doesn't have to be real rejection. Perceived rejection is enough. Your boss doesn't respond to your team's message for 45 minutes, and suddenly you've written your resignation letter in your head. Now, here's the actual science behind it, because it's not just being sensitive. RSD was identified and named by psychiatrist named Dr. William Dodson, and he estimates that up to 99% of adults with ADHD experience it to some degree. That's not a small number. That's basically everybody that has ADHD. The reason it happens is actually tied to how the ADHD brain processes dopamine and norepinephrine, the neurotransmitters that regulate mood and emotional response. Our system is dysregulated. So when a social threat comes in, the emotional reaction fires fast and hard. So normal brains have a built-in pause when this happens. ADHD brains don't. And because of that reaction is so intense and so fast, people around us often see it as dramatic or oversensitive, which ironically makes the RSD worse. It's a beautiful little loop of suffering. The funny and the sad part about this is that RSD often turns us into people pleasers on steroids. We say yes when we actually mean no. We rewrite text until our thumbs fall off. We rehearse conversations in the shower so we don't accidentally say something to offend someone. Number two, time blindness. And I need you to understand, this is not bad at schedules. This is not just use a planner, bro. This is a neurological thing where your brain literally cannot feel time passing the same way that other people's brains do. For most people, time exists on kind of a continuum: past, present, future, and they can feel the weight of all three. For ADHD brains, though, there's now and there's not now. That's it. That's basically the whole spectrum. You think, I'll just take 10 minutes to answer this email. Cut to 3 hours later. You reorganize your sock drawer, maybe by color. You research the entire history of origami, and maybe you started a new playlist on Spotify. The research on this is pretty wild. Dr. Russell Barkley, one of the leading ADHD researchers in the world, has actually argued that ADHD is fundamentally a disorder of time, not just attention. His point is that the attention label almost undersells it. The real problem is that the ADHD brain can't sense time passing as a resource that's being used up. In 2020, there was actually a study on this in the Journal of Attention Disorders that backed up this idea. Adults with ADHD had significantly less accurate time perception than that of the control group. Even when they were specifically trying to track time, even when they knew the clock was running, they still couldn't feel it. This also wrecks relationships in a way people don't actually talk about that much. When you're chronically late, people read it as, "oh, he's not caring," as disrespect. And explaining, "I literally can't feel time," sounds like an excuse, even when it is the most accurate description of what's happening in our brains. My relationships with deadlines is basically, it doesn't feel real until it's on fire. So what that means is, if you have a deadline that's in the future, like a week or so, it doesn't feel like it's on fire, even though it probably is, Until that fire gets closer, within like a day or two, I really start to feel that fire. I once had a teacher who said I had time management issues. What she meant was my brain doesn't experience time as something that runs out. It experiences time as an abstract concept. It's like the concept of sourdough bread. I know it exists, I've just never eaten it. Number three, hyperfocus. The ADHD superpower, if you will. The thing people love to bring up when they argue, oh, ADHD can't be all that bad. You can focus when you want to. Sir, I just spent 6 hours watching YouTube videos on the Mariana Trench, and I can tell you that microplastics do exist at the deepest part of the ocean. Hyperfocus is when something grabs your dopamine and your brain locks in like a heat seeking missile. Hours disappear. Eating. What's that? So here's the actual explanation for why this happens, because it's a little counterintuitive. If ADHD is an attention problem, how do we focus this intensely on anything? The answer is dopamine. Dr. Ned Hallowell, who co wrote Driven to Distraction, which is one of the foundational books on ADHD, describes it like this: ADHD brains aren't unable to pay attention, they're unable to regulate where the attention goes. And when something activates the brain's reward system, something genuinely interesting, novel, or urgently high stakes, the dopamine spikes can trigger this almost compulsive state of deep focus. And here's the part that normal neurotypical brains don't understand. We cannot always choose what we hyperfocus on. I love to hyperfocus on the weeds in my backyard. I'd love to lock in on that email I've been avoiding for 2 weeks. Instead, my brain has decided that today we are mastering the taxonomy of cloud formations. Thanks, brain. When hyperfocus ends, when whatever pulled you in suddenly doesn't, you crash. Hard. Like someone unplugged the whole system. You're exhausted, disoriented, and vaguely aware that you neglected several relationships, possibly even a plant. Number four, executive dysfunction, or as I've started calling it, why can't I just do the damn thing? This is a working title for my memoir, by the way. Executive dysfunction is when your brain knows exactly what it needs to be done. It has the information, it has the attention, it may even have a color coded spreadsheet, which I'm a big sheethead, by the way, but actually starting the task is where everything falls apart. And it's not laziness. I will say that as many times as I need to. It is a documented neurological glitch in the brain's planning and motivation system, if you need that one for your boss. Executive function, the mental skills that help you plan, initiate, and complete tasks, lives mostly in the prefrontal cortex. I think I'm pointing to the right spot. And research consistently shows that ADHD brains have significant impairments across every major domain of executive function. Sorry, mom. Dr. Russell Barkley actually argues that ADHD is better understood as an executive function disorder rather than an attention disorder because the attention piece is almost a side effect. The deeper issue is that the brain's motivational system runs on dopamine, and those mundane tasks that you don't like to do don't generate any natural dopamine rewards. So the engine just doesn't start. So here's a classic example. Let's say you want to clean your living room. So you spend 45 minutes sitting on the edge of your couch thinking about how you want to clean the living room. You make the list, you organize the list, or at least my wife does, and you create a priority system for the list. And then you lie down because creating the list was exhausting and nothing moved forward. And the worst part? People say, just start. Once you start, it gets easier. And they're not entirely wrong. For a lot of us, once the task is in motion, the ADHD brain can sustain it reasonably well. The barrier is the initiation, but telling someone with executive dysfunction to just start is like telling someone with a broken leg to just walk it off. Technically coherent, practically useless. This brings us to our last point, number five, which is masking, my favorite. And this one is the most exhausting item on the list, which is really saying something given that the whole list is basically a triathlon. Masking is when you spend so much energy performing neurotypical suppressing, like fidgeting, forcing eye contact, scripting your conversations, over preparing so nobody notices that you're struggling. And you'll eventually crash hard, like the first time that you had a monster energy drink in high school. And masking is well documented, actually studied more in autism research, but it shows up in ADHD too. A 2023 study found that ADHD masking includes things like scripting conversations in advance, forcing eye contact, suppressing physical fidgeting, like me moving around, and performing competence in social situations, even when you're completely overwhelmed. And the same study found that heavy masking was significantly associated with worse mental health outcomes, higher rates of anxiety, depression, and burnout. Not surprising when you realize you're running a second parallel process all day, every day, that most people around you don't know exists. And here's the thing that nobody told me because this one hits really hard. Masking is a learned survival. If you grew up being told you were too much, too loud, too distracted, too forgetful, too sensitive, you learn to perform. You learn to seem fine, and it works until it doesn't. For a lot of late diagnosed people, like myself, the moment we got diagnosed wasn't because we're obviously struggling, it was because we've been white knuckling it for years. The mask held until it didn't hold anymore. ADHD burnout, which is different from general burnout, is what happens when the sustained effort of masking depletes everything. It's just feeling tired. It's a total system shutdown where tasks you can normally manage become completely impossible. Your ability to mask collapses, your emotional regulation goes. And things that were manageable, answering emails, making phone calls, getting out of bed, become literal mountains. The good news is that once you start unmasking, even just a little bit, things get lighter. You don't have to do it all at once. Find someone that's a safe person, like my wife's a safe person. Tell them, my brain's running a little hot today. That's it. That's the start. Or just tell them, I need to unmask for a little while. So there you have it. 5 ADHD things that nobody talks about, but absolutely should. RSD, your emotions on volume 11, firing before your brain even has time to fact check them. Time blindness, there's only now and not now. Hyperfocus, the superpower with no off switch. Executive dysfunction, knowing exactly what to do and being completely unable to start. And masking, performing fine every single day until you're absolutely not fine. If any of this sounds like something that you used to talk about on your MySpace page, you're not alone. ADHD isn't a character flaw. It's not laziness. It's not weakness. And it's not an excuse. It's a different operating system. And yeah, sometimes it just crashes. But it also does genuinely remarkable things when it's running right. I'd love for you to drop in the comments which one of these hit you the hardest. Or is there a hidden ADHD thing that didn't make the list and you think people maybe need to hear about it? I promise that I read everything down in the comments and I'd love to hear your feedback on it. If this video helped you at all, or maybe feel just a little bit less alone, please hit the like button. It helps the channel more than you know. And also subscribe if you want more content from a brain that's very much still in progress. And if you're anything like me, you already forgot that this tab exists. All right, so I'll see you next time whenever my brain decides that this is happening again. Bye.